Today we're back, and I'm so glad you could join me for an extra special episode of The Writing Show. Today we've got a special guest on the show, Mr. Chalkboard. He's got a lot of great info to tell us today, and he's going to help us understand a couple key points. Today's episode is all about cutting unnecessary words. There's a myriad of ways to cut the fluff and slim down the word count of our novels. The first way of which is by being specific. Good old Mr. Chalkboard will help me with this one. For example, don't simply say, "The flowers brightened up the entry hall." Instead you could say, "The sunflowers made the entry hall glow." Another way we can end up with excess wordage is by getting lost in our descriptions. Heavy-handed descriptiveness is usually out of place unless you're writing a Victorian novel. They're usually unintentionally dense, and by beginners often confused for good writing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you should go straight minimalist on me, but there's a time and place for everything. Closing time at the bar, and you don't have to go home adjectives, but you can't stay here. What was that, Mr. Chalkboard? Adjectives are used to describe nouns or pronouns, whereas adverbs are used to describe verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. Often, but not always, adverbs end in ly, which makes them easy to spot. You shouldn't rely on an overabundance of modifiers to create vivid imagery, but instead use a handful of well-placed ones. For example, he ran quickly to escape his ex-girlfriend. The word quickly modifies the word run, but we can cut the modifier and the word it modifies. Now, he sprinted to escape his ex-girlfriend. See what I mean? Sorry for the bad example, but just remember, modifiers are words used to describe other words. I can go more into modifiers in a later video if you like. Another way to cut the fluff and get your novel up to snuff is by eliminating filter words. Filter words are words that we use to filter the reader's experience through our main character's point of view. Examples of filter words are see, look, hear, feel, realize, and wonder. Now, you don't need to cut every use of these words, but oftentimes their usages are unnecessary. For example, you don't need to say, "I hear footsteps coming down the hall." You can instead say, "Footsteps echoed down the hall." It pulls more punches in a fewer amount of words, which is definitely what you want. Also, there are words that are implied, such as stand up. You can simply say stand because the up is implied, or the same can be said for sit down. You just have to say sit because the down is implied. That is, unless you're not like me and you're doing sit-ups. If you like a straight-up list of words to cut, Vivien Reis has a great video on 29 words to cut from your writing, so I'll be sure to link that below. Or if you're looking for words to replace words, such as said, very, and a whole slew of other words, Cam from Wolfshot Publishing has a bunch of great alternative words listed on his website. If there's any questions I didn't answer, I hope those resources are helpful, and if not, make sure to leave a comment below and I can cover it in a future video. I hope all that made sense and was useful. Just remember, when you're going through that pesky first draft, if there are any scenes that don't move the character or plot along, you gotta give them the boot. Anyway, until next time, ride on. The first of which is by being You're drunk, David. Go home.